Into the abyss. The void beyond the galactic charts was called many things by many races. To the Valorians, it was the silent grave. The Torvan called it the Maw. And to the galactic Concord, it was simply the Shroud, a region of space avoided by every sensible civilization for as long as records existed. But to humanity, it was a frontier. The ISS Dauntless slipped past the last known beacon with her engines humming like a restless heartbeat. Commander Laura Voss stood at the command dais, eyes fixed on the starfield ahead. Except, the further they pushed, the fewer stars remained. One by one, familiar constellations vanished until the screen showed only an oppressive curtain of black. Behind her, Dr. Seren, the Torvan scientist assigned to observe, clicked his mandibles in distress. This region has swallowed fleets. Commander, there are no returns, only silence. Ilara's lips curled into the kind of smile that infuriated her alien counterparts. Silence means no one's come back alive. Not that no one can. The human crew laughed softly, the sound sharp and defiant in the otherwise tense air. The aliens aboard, the cautious Torvan scientist and the wide-eyed Zaren linguist, shifted uncomfortably. To them, this mission was madness. But to the crew of the Dauntless, it was history in the making. Hours stretched. The blackness outside was wrong, too absolute, too hungry. Sensor arrays flickered, readings scrambled. First the long-range scanners died. Then the star maps failed to update. Gravity measurements fluctuated wildly. It was as if the laws of physics themselves bent under some invisible hand. Lieutenant Rahim swore under his breath as he fought the helm. Navigation's glitching again. It thinks we upside down inside a gravity well that doesn't exist. Then fly blind, Ilara ordered calmly. We've done it before. The ship shuddered as though the darkness itself pressed against the hull. Lights flickered. For a moment, the crew swore they felt something watching. Seren's mandibles clicked louder. This is folly. Do you not feel it? The shroud is not empty. It is alive. We must turn back before it notices us. The Zyran linguist added in a whisper. There are legends of whispers that peel the mind like skin. The bridge fell quiet. Even hardened explorers felt the weight of those words. Ilara broke the silence. Her voice was steady, iron wrapped in flesh. Every inch of space we've ever claimed was once called impossible, cursed, or forbidden. Earth itself was shaped by walking into storms we weren't meant to survive. Fear is natural, but what we do next, that defines us. Her crew straightened at the words. Jaws clenched, hands steadied on controls. Where other species saw an abyss to flee, humans saw a challenge to conquer. The stars were gone now. All that remained was the endless dark of the shroud. The unknown pressed in on every side, heavy and suffocating, and humanity sailed straight into it. The darkness watches. The darkness was not still. At first, the crew of the Dauntless thought it was imagination, a trick of eyes strained by the absence of starlight. But then came the sounds. Whispers. Not through the comms, not through the ship's speakers, but inside their minds. Lieutenant Rahim froze at his station, his hand hovering above a console. Commander, did you hear that? Hear what? Ilara asked, though she already knew. Her own ears still rang with something faint and terrible, a voice calling her name in her mother's tone. It said, Rahim's lips trembled. It said my name. The aliens were less composed. Dr. Seren's mandibles clacked furiously as he pressed himself against the wall, pupils wide. It knows us. We should not be here. You must turn back, Commander. The Zyran linguist, pale and shaking, clutched at the straps of his seat. This matches the myths. They say the shroud has a hunger for thought, for memory. Ships vanish because their crews are consumed before a distress call can be sent. Ilara's jaw tightened, but she refused to look away from the forward screen. Then let's find what did the consuming. Hours bled into each other as the Dauntless pressed deeper. Crew members reported strange visions, fleeting shapes at the edge of their eyes, voices speaking in dead tongues. Some claimed they saw loved ones standing in the corridors, smiling, waiting, before dissolving into mist. Then the sensors caught something. Contact! Rahim snapped, hands flying over the manual console. Bearing 215, relative drift. It's massive. On the screens, a shape emerged from the black. A derelict starship, so vast it dwarfed the Dauntless. Its hull was scarred, torn open in places, yet unmistakably alien. No design in the Concord archives matched it. Saren recoiled. That vessel is older than my species' recorded history. Then it's our first lead, Ilaris said. Prepare an away team. Protests erupted instantly. The Zyran linguist pleaded. Commander, nothing that enters the shroud returns. That ship is a tomb. Its dead may not even be dead. Ilara's reply was sharp and cold. Tombs tell stories. We're here to learn. The docking clamps engaged with a hollow clang, and a squad of humans stepped into the derelict. Flashlights pierced corridors filled with drifting frost and shattered bulkheads. They found claw marks gouged into walls. Doors ripped from hinges. Frozen corpses twisted mid-scream. One body had torn out its own eyes. Lieutenant Rahim whispered, "What in God's name happened here?" Ilara knelt beside a console, brushing frost from the alien symbols etched into the display. The logs flickered weakly, translating just enough for the linguist to interpret. One phrase repeated again and again. The entity feeds. The air grew heavier. A low vibration rolled through the metal beneath their boots, resonating in their skulls. Something was here, watching, waiting. Rahim clutched his rifle tighter. It knows we're here. The ship groaned. Lights flickered. Somewhere deep within the darkness, something stirred. And the Dauntless was no longer alone. Humanity's defiance. The Dauntless trembled as the entity revealed itself, not with form, but with pressure. An invisible tide pressed against every mind on board. Screens scrambled, the air itself seemed to thicken, and the whispers rose into a cacophony of stolen voices. The alien observers collapsed first. The Zyran linguist screamed, clutching his skull, words devolving into primal sobs. Dr. Saren writhed on the floor, mandibles clicking in spasms as if his thoughts were being peeled away. Ilara gritted her teeth, forcing her focus on the bridge. The voices clawed at her mind, her dead father, her first lover, her own voice whispering doubts she'd buried long ago. She clung to the captain's chair like an anchor in a storm. "Status," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "He's corrupted," Rahim gasped, sweat dripping from his brow as he fought the console. "It's trying to reroute navigation. It wants control." The entity pressed harder. Images of burning cities flashed in every human mind, disasters they'd lived or only read about. It sought to drown them in fear, to unravel them piece by piece. But humans did not unravel easily. Ilara slammed her hand against the override, severing the ship's AI. Manual control only. No more shortcuts. The bridge lit with emergency red as systems reverted to crude backups. Levers, analog dials, hardwired panels the aliens had mocked as primitive. Now, those same redundancies kept the ship alive. Rahim forced a laugh, ragged but defiant. "You picked the wrong species to scare, you bastard." The entity seemed to recoil, confused. Where alien minds cracked, the humans resisted. Fear did not paralyze them, it sharpened them. The more the entity pushed, the harder their defiance burned. Ilara realized the truth in Rahim's words. It doesn't understand us. We've been living with fear since the beginning. Wars, plagues, storms, death. Fear made us stronger. The ship bucked as the entity lashed out physically now, warping space around the hull. Gravity twisted, bulkheads groaned. Still, the humans fought. Crew sealed breaches with their bare hands, worked until their knuckles bled, and laughed through gritted teeth. The whispers grew frantic. The entity had never encountered prey like this. For every nightmare it conjured, a human answered with memory of survival. Ancestors crossing oceans, soldiers fighting in hopeless wars, children enduring hunger and rising again. Rahim, barely standing, wiped blood from his nose and whispered, "It's afraid. Not of our weapons, but of what we are." Ilara stared into the darkness pressing against the forward screen, her resolve hardening like steel. "Then let's teach it what fear really feels like." The Dauntless steadied, battered but unbroken. The humans had looked into the abyss, and instead of surrendering, they grinned back. For the first time, the entity hesitated. Into the light. The entity circled the Dauntless like a predator toying with prey, but its confidence had cracked. Every surge of pressure, every psychic lash, met resistance it had never known. The humans were not breaking, they were burning brighter. But resistance alone would not save them. Systems were failing. Hull integrity was at 40%. Life support flickered with every attack. Ilara knew they couldn't endure a war of attrition. "We need to hit it where it hurts," she said, voice sharp over the chaos. Rahim coughed blood onto his sleeve, his hands steady on the controls. "Captain, we don't even know if it has a heart." "Then we'll give it one." The plan formed fast, desperate but human to the core. The Dauntless carried a warp core capable of collapsing space into blinding light and radiation. It was meant for power, not as a weapon. But Ilara intended to turn it into a psychic flare. Not just energy, human will. The crew linked into the neural coordination system, a device designed for tactical synchrony. Normally, it shared surface thoughts for faster response times. Now, Ilara demanded more. "Don't hold back," she told them, her voice low but steady. "Every memory, every pain, every joy. Feed it everything we are. Fear, love, rage, stubbornness. Let it choke on humanity." They connected, and the entity struck. Darkness poured into their minds. Visions of annihilation, of Earth reduced to ash, of children crying in endless night. But the humans answered with their truth. They poured out the fire of their species. The first spark lit by cavemen defying the dark, explorers who sailed oceans without maps, soldiers who stood their ground against impossible odds, parents who starved so their children could eat. Fear was not weakness. Fear was fuel. The neural web blazed with raw emotion. The warp core screamed under the overload, its energy spiking beyond safety. Ilara felt her crew's lives interwoven with hers, Rahim's laughter at a childhood victory, the medic's memory of a mother's lullaby, the engineer's first kiss under a rain-soaked sky. They hurled it all into the abyss. The entity wailed in a chorus of stolen voices, its formless presence unraveling as the flare built. For the first time, it felt what it had inflicted for eons. Not hunger, not dominance, fear. Now! Ilara roared. The warp core detonated in a blinding surge of light and thought, a flare that cut through the shroud like a sunrise. The entity screamed and recoiled, retreating into the endless dark. The Dauntless shuddered, but held. Systems flickered, stabilized. Silence fell. When the light faded, the shroud no longer pressed so heavily. The stars returned, faint but visible. The alien observers, pale and trembling, stared at the humans with something between awe and dread. "You," Saren whispered, voice broken. "You made the unknown afraid." Ilara sank back into her chair, exhausted but unbroken. She opened a channel to the Concord. The shroud is not empty. It is hunter ground. But humanity stood, and the hunters bled. On the bridge, Rahim chuckled through cracked lips. "Guess we just taught the abyss how to blink." For the first time in its existence, the terrifying unknown had something to fear, and it was human.